specific about NOAA. That's great.
All right. Who do we have on the telephone lines?
That's what they call me.
Okay. Okay, I would like to call to order the regular meeting, November 28th, 2018. I'll ask us to begin by standing for the singing Bow Cannon. I'd like to welcome everyone to the last public meeting of the sitting board. And I'd like to turn it over to the director to do roll call, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening, trustees. This is our roll call for our meeting of 28 November 2018. Trustee Armour.
Present.
First Vice Chair Karkner.
Present.
Trustee Cram.
Present.
Trustee Jacobs.
Present.
Trustee Wendy McPherson. Trustee Bill McPherson.
Present.
Trustee McAllister.
Present.
Second Vice Chair McDonald.
Present.
Chair McMillan.
Present.
Trustee Richards. Trustee Swan. Student Trustee Bushra-Cadron.
Present.
Mr. Chair, I'll just check one more time. Trustee Wendy McPherson. Not online yet. Thank you, Mr. Chair. You have quorum.
Thank you very much, Director. Need a motion that the Upper Canada District School Board approve consent agenda item 3.02 to 3.03, November 14th, 2018, as submitted. It should be the 28th. November, I caught that one. November 28th as submitted. I need a mover and a seconder. Trustee Bill McPherson, seconded by Trustee Susan Richards. And I ask you to cast your votes, please.
I'm in favor.
Thank you.
Just late.
Thank you. And that carries. Thank you very much. Mr. McAllister.
Yes, I'm in favor. Sorry,
One of those nights, eh? Do you have any conflict of interest declarations? Seeing there are none, we're going to move forward with the report to the board from private session. At its committee of the whole meeting, private session, November 14th, 2018, there was one litigation and one financial matter was discussed. There were no recommendations were brought forward to the board. So that moves us to our first delegation, which is our Morrisburg Public School, and they're going to be sharing with us their improvement plan for student achievement and wellness. And I'm going to turn this over to Superintendent Deanna Perry, who will do the introductions for us.
They got the no up here.
Oh, sorry. Sorry about that. Good evening.
Just a reminder to everyone that's presenting tonight, we're dealing with a different camera system as we normally do, so everything has to go to the podium or over to that microphone. Okay.
I'm very pleased to introduce you this evening Krista Mano, who is the principal at Morrisburg Public School. I have only recently come to know Krista, as I'm new to the board myself, and in the time that I have gone to schools with Krista, I can tell you that her leadership is evident. And she is one who does not lead from the sidelines. She is right in there with the students. She's working with them daily, and she puts a huge emphasis not only on student success, academic success, but well-being for her staff, students, and her community as well. So I know that she is very proud to share with you the work that is being done at Morrisburg, and I'm quite proud that she's able to do that with you this evening.
Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Just wondering, is my slideshow being presented, or am I just, okay, sorry.
He's just going to wing it.
I can wing it, but
We're just winging it tonight.
thank you, Lisa. So good evening, everybody. I'm here this evening to talk to you about the great things happening at Morrisburg Public School. Hopefully this works. Thank you. So Morrisburg is in the South Dundas area and is part of the Seaway family of schools. We have 159 students at the school at this time, and the enrollment has increased by 21 students since last June. So we're quite happy about that as well. One of the things we have in place is an Empower Reading program, which is actually targeting our grade 3 students with learning disability profiles. That does not necessarily mean that they have been identified, but may have many of the characteristics that show from their learning. So these we've targeted grade 3 as the primary EQAO as part of the targeting component to ensure that students have a better success rate moving forward. One of the things that we have at our school, which I'm very proud of, and our staff are very dedicated to the wellness of students, we have a sensory room as well as a calming room. And this helps with students that have self-regulation challenges. It could be from a body break to a student that has actually identified with some exceptionalities. And we group them into different sessions so that the kids can be successful throughout the learning day. Again, we prepare all students for society and making sure that they are good citizens, and we guide them to make the right choices. We know that they're going to make some mistakes along the way, and we just encourage them to make some better choices the next time. One thing I really want to highlight is our community and the support that we receive from our community financially, as well as mentorship and volunteers that come into our school that support a lot of our students with great character traits that they share with our students, and it allows us to use community access of great resources in our community. We're very, very, very pleased with our EQAO scores, which have improved significantly in the last 3 years. We have moved from 2015 to 2017-18. If you look at the scores, you'll see that every area of our EQAO assessments in primary and junior levels have increased over the last 3 years. We still do have some work to do with our math, but there has been a significant growth in all areas of both reading, writing, and the math problem solving. So that's a good news story for our school. One of the things that with the EQAO scores that people have probably been wondering about is how come the significant change. Our school was chosen as an OFIP school, which stands for Ontario Focused Intervention Partnership Program, which allows the government to provide some extra resources for students, as well as some professional development for staff. And our staff has been committed and dedicated and grown collaboratively professionally throughout the last couple of years, where we have met on a every 3 to 4 weeks on both numeracy and literacy, and built a big understanding and some work along with the ministry, which has been significant to our staff. In regards to the numeracy and literacy goal, one of the things that we've been doing has been a continuation of some of the work that we've done last year, which we've seen has made a significant difference in our scores as well as our student achievement levels. So we have continued to do some of the same work. I did have a conversation with Helen Colomb, who was one of our student achievement officers last year, who's now retired, and she just talked about that, you know, we have some traction. Our staff is all using the professional learning that they've embedded over the last couple of years, and now it's part of their practice. So it's a matter of continuing to ensure that it happens on a daily basis to continue to support student achievement. So what that looks like is we are using Alex Lawson's work, which is also a foundational piece of our board at this time. This is the second year that we've been using it, so our staff are actually quite familiar with placing students on the continuum and using the strategies to move students from one level to the next. In regards to literacy, we are doing guided reading groups as well as individual reading. And what that looks like is small groups of students working with an educator as well as with some volunteers at our school that are actually trained in literacy. And that part provides some special background and one-on-one attention for students who may not be getting some reading at home or that may need some interventions from an educator point of view. I just added this slide. I know not maybe everybody could see it, but it is in your package. I just wanted to share with you because we do talk about at the board level of closing the gaps in from different types of students and student learning. So that we do have a diversity of students at our school, like most schools in our Upper Canada School Board. So this just shows that we are moving students from level 1 over to level 2, from level 2 over to level 3, and then some of our students from level 3 to level 4. And if you look at these graphs, you can see that some of the level 2s are going down and the 3s are going up. So, and that's under most of our both reading, writing, and math for both grade 3s and 6s. One of the big things at our school is trying to find the wellness and make sure that it's foundational for all our students at our school. We presently have approximately 20% of our students that are Tier 3 for safety and behavior planning. This, although they are receiving this programming at our school, they also receive some partnership with mental health counselors from our community, as well as some services from Children's Aid Society, who may be working with families and the school to ensure that students are successful and that their families can be supportive as they grow up. So in regards to our wellness, what we are doing at the primary level is we are doing what's called CalSOS Choices. We did do a pre-assessment to see where students were because we do have a combination that some students had CalSOS Choices in the past, but they were not using them. So what we've done is we've implemented training and programming using our student support partner as well as staff to train our students and to use one of CalSOS choices, which is making a choice about a small problem on the yard, where they would pick a solution to solve a problem, such as ignoring the situation, walking away, going to another game, trying to talk it out. There's 8 choices. This year is also, the plan is to roll it out to have parents work with us and be aware of the wheel. So it would be in each classroom's classroom newsletter. In regards to grade 3 to 6, there is an overlap where we're trying to get our grade 3s who have a high level of some difficulties with some challenges with self-regulation. We're trying to double up on them a little bit, where we have implemented zones of regulation with our grade 3 to 6 students. And what that is trying to get students to identify how they're feeling and to actually try to pick a tool that would bring them down from, if they're angry, what could they do in order to move to something that they would not be as explosive. So trying to choose a tool, go for a walk, get a drink of water, and be able to identify how they feel and what they could do next. The final slide I just want to share with you, I think, is one of our biggest assets, is that we have a significantly strong community that backs our school, in the sense that we have some financial donations from Lions Club, the Legion. We've had Women Who Care in our community donate money to our school. We have private donations given to support some educational programming outside of the regular school programming, so it is an enhancement to some of our school curriculum, but also linked to curriculum. So it could be a trip to the War Museum, which some students really wanted to do, an art museum, and it's accessible to all students. So, and that's generally been funded by a lot of donations in our community. The other thing that we do have, which is a significant piece, is we have a big, we call it the Crime Stoppers Stay the Course, and we have a partnership with the Lions Club, the Legion, Crime Stoppers, Police Department, and some other community members that are part of a mentorship program where grade 6 students are paired up with a member in the community that are positive role members to our students. And they go out once a week golfing together, they talk about character traits, and these people also come into our school and do some other activities throughout the year, such as curling. At the end of the year, our grade 6 leaving ceremony is actually a ceremony of gratitude where we pay tribute to all the people that have impacted our school throughout the year. So the Hartford Center, which is a senior citizen center, we are connected with them. We bring Christmas cards, we do a little Halloween parade around. So things that are very popular in our community, we connect with them, and our grade 6s and 5s also go to the Hartford once a month, and they have actually are linked up with some senior citizens and do some curriculum connections. We also have empathy cards that we are in conjunction with the Winchester Hospital. So we deliver between 300 to 500 empathy cards in the month of December to the Winchester Hospital to give out to patients that are at the hospital that may be missing family and friends. We also do a lot of clubs in our school. We do the Blue Bots has been a spin-off of the summer learning program, and now we have the grade 4s that were part of the summer program doing some coding with the grade 2s at some of the recesses. We still have our dance clubs and singing clubs, and those are led by our grade 5 and 6 students. So our grade 5 and 6 students actually choose what they have a passion for and lead smaller groups in the school at a time that a staff member can look after them. So that includes a Lego club. Last year we had a Mario club because we had a student who loves Mario. So it just depends on what the student's passion is, and we try to feed that into our school so that they can become leaders of our school. And that's my presentation.
Thank you very much. Krista, before we continue, do you have some guests with you tonight?
Yes, I do have one guest with us this evening. It's Mrs. Kirsten Gardner. She is past chairperson of our school council, as well as she's elected deputy mayor for our area, and she's still on our school council, so we're happy to have her. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Welcome. I'm going to turn this over to the trustees. I'm going to start with Trustee Armour.
Okay. I'll keep this brief because it's my last meeting as trustee. But Krista, I'm not going to talk about the school because the change that I've seen in that school has been significant. And so what I want to talk about a little bit, because I'm gonna make you embarrassed, is the leadership that I see. Because we're leaders around this table in education, and I'm proud of what you've done with the school and your team. It's amazing. And so I represent the community and the parents, and the feedback that I get, and I talk to our deputy mayor quite a bit, and we're really proud to have you there. And it warms my heart to see you there. So thank you. And I'm not done, so you can save that. So in the words of the beautiful Dolly Parton, If your actions create a legacy that inspires others to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, then you are an excellent leader. And Krista, you are an excellent leader, and it shows in the results.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations. Very good.
Through you, Chair, if I could just make one comment. Our team at our school is amazing. I do believe I like to lead as well, but I can't do it without the professionalism of everybody who works in my building. They go 150% full out, and all I could say is kudos to them, because they've been around a lot longer than me at that school, but they're in the trenches and they really do a good job supporting all our students at our school, so thank you.
Thank you. Trustees, any comments or questions? Trustee McAllister.
Thank you, Krista. That was a great presentation. I wish I had known about Kelso's Wheel of Choices many, many years ago. Might have helped me through life a bit better. But in any event, to follow up on what Trustee Armour said, in a conversation earlier this evening, I congratulated you on your success at Morrisburg Public, and you said that you followed success. At least it seemed that way. I don't think it's that way at all. I think success follows you, and I think you deserve a lot of credit for the team that you've put together, as well as your leadership for that team.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Trustee McAllister. Trustee Bill McPherson.
Thank you. Through the chair. You mentioned a sensory room and a common room to help students with self-regulating challenges supported by safety and behavioral programming. Can you kind of explain how this works? And just explain how it works. Sorry.
Through you, Chair. So we have two different rooms in our building that serve a couple of different purposes. The sensory room is a room that's a multi-purpose room for students with exceptionalities that could include autism, some sensory needs. It also is a room for students that just need body breaks, so a student that might have a high level of energy. So what we do is we do a little bit of combination of student needs. So maybe 3 kids that might need a body break at a certain time, we try to group them together and give them a break at a certain time. So it is logistics planning. So we have probably about 15 students that access the sensory room on a daily basis. Not all day, but maybe 10, 15-minute breaks, depending on their needs and their reinforcement programs. Our common room is a little bit different. It's a room that is used in 2 different ways. One as a therapeutic, not therapeutic as in clinical, but is set up with some mental health counselors' input in regards to some programming pieces that we might be able to put in place for students who need to just breathe, do some breathing exercises. So that room actually has 4 or 5 posters up in the room of different strategies that students can use when they need to just calm down. It's also used if a student is experiencing severe outbursts of behavior, and with the approach that we would shorten the time that they're in the common room and return them to class. Whenever they're in that room, we do have plans in place, and we do usually have 2 staff to ensure that we are providing proper de-escalation of programming for kids, and then a debriefing with staff afterwards.
Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee McDonald.
Thank you. I did want to echo comments of Trustee Armour and Trustee McAllister. You've been to a few schools that are close to me and always left an indelible imprint on the success of those schools. So I think you really have a track record for that. So I appreciate that, and I think Trustee Armour put it the best, and I appreciate that for sure. I do have one other comment and a couple of questions. I'm really happy to see that the golf program is still existing. I have a bit of a connection to that. A number of years ago, my father was running the Crime Stoppers and came to me with this idea about having a golf program, and we started at Iroquois first and moved over to Morrisburg. So I think the program is a good one for the kids and a good one for the community, and certainly you spoke to the highlights of that. So it's nice to see that something does carry on. My question, I have first one around the OFIP. When that was brought forward, how did the staff feel about it? What was their reception to it, and how are they feeling after having that process put in place?
Through you, Chair. I think a lot of times whenever you implement any major change, that it can be difficult. I have to say that our staff have been together a long time, and we have not had too much turnover of staff. So the dedication and commitment of improving student learning, as well as they are a very large group of reflective practitioners who have thrived on feedback and looking at how they can improve their own practice, and I think that that's been a significant part of the puzzle, because I also understand that in some schools, OFIP sometimes is not seen as, or it's seen as a difficult transition. I do feel our staff did an amazing job and continue to have developed those strategies and are using them on a daily basis now in their classrooms. And of course, we have been rewarded with some extra math manipulatives and stuff like that as we move forward.
So I think, to your comment, I think that there is evidence that staff really did support it and have implemented it, and that's a testament to them, I think, as well, in allowing them to embrace that and to move forward. My last question, and you may not have the answer for this, or you may have some of the information. A number of years ago, we received a presentation from Mooresburg, and there was some numbers that were presented that there is a higher incident level of students entering Mooresburg that have some speech-language issues. Have you noticed that, or do we still have a number of students in Mooresburg that have speech-language issues entering kindergarten?
Through you, Chair. I don't have statistics or data to support that, but I do know that we have been using the Sound Skills program that was implemented last year, which is a kindergarten intervention program where we're actually working on sound skills within the classroom, so hoping to build into the speech-language development, but we still do have speech-language support, so I can't speak if it's higher or lower at this time, but I can tell you we are supporting speech and language development through our kindergarten and grade 1 programming.
Thank you. Any other comments? Trustee Carter?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Through you, I'd like to echo what my colleagues have been saying here tonight. I've known Krista for quite some time now, and she's grown into the professional that I expected her to be, and that's fantastic. I'm just curious about your grade 6 students. Are there any plans or any programs in place to transition to grade 7 at this point of the school year?
Through you, Chair. We have been doing some discussions with Seaway in regards to what transition planning will be looking like. We have had some transition plans in the past that for activities, I'll say, and we're looking more to do some transition planning both around the LINK program, and no disrespect to past principals and what the practice has looked like. But right now, what our transition plan looks like is we're still conversing with Seaway about some of our students, and we have already started transition planning for students with exceptionalities as part of the individual education plan that we put in place.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Any other comments or questions? It's quite evident that we're pretty proud of the work that you're doing. You know, and it's been mentioned over and over again about the great leadership you display. The one that catches my attention is you're humble and you give credit to those around you, and that to me is a quality that great leaders share. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, moving on to our next school presentation. This is going to be North Dundas District High School, and I'm going to turn this over to Superintendent David Coombs.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and good evening, everybody. That was a great presentation. It leads well into this next great presentation. I'm really pleased to welcome the administrative team from North Dundas District High School. I have Principal Angela Grandy here and Vice Principal Simon Barch. And without giving away any spoilers, I can tell you, I think what you're going to hear is a story of a school that is truly the definition of a composite school and a community-engaged school. And without further ado, I'll turn it over to Angela.
Thank you. And Angela, before you begin, I know you have special guests as well.
I do.
Could you introduce those people as well?
I would like to introduce Simon Barch. He is a new vice principal with the Upper Canada District School Board. I have Vicki Tate. She is our office administrator. And I have Robin Bird. She's our office assistant.
Excellent. Welcome.
So thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you about North Dundas District High School. We serve 144 elementary students and 300 secondary students and their families. I don't have the official data for the grad rate for last year, but I can tell you of the students who started grade 12 with us in September, 95.3% graduated in June. Our credit accumulation rate is always over 90%, and when we offer programs like credit recovery to students, we're able to get it up to approximately 93.6. Consistently, since specialist high skills majors have arrived at North Dundas, 45 to 50% of our grade 11 and 12 students participate. And last June, we had a 100% completion rate of our students in grade 12. We partner with TR Leger School to offer after-school programming. In particular, we have cooperative education, and we have a band for credit program that our grade 8 students can participate in for Reach Ahead. And last year, they won the gold medal in the Kinsman Music Festival. We think our literacy and numeracy work aligns well with the director's work plan goal for increasing the graduation rate. We've been able to staff strategically with qualified English and math teachers in our classrooms and on our team, as well as elementary and secondary teachers on our panel. We follow a professional learning cycle. I've included that on the slide in front of you. I think what's really important, however, is that we always have student work at the table. We look at our school data, and we particularly analyze our EQAO data on questions where our students have not performed well. We talk to our students, we observe them at work, and then we take all that into consideration, and that's what drives our next steps in our instructional practice. And we follow that cycle and we repeat it. We're building the capacity of our teachers across our school by everything that we're learning. In our SIPSA teams, we move it across our curriculum areas through professional learning days and our staff meetings. This year, we have 100% of our teachers participating in tracking 3 focus students using a SIPSA monitoring plan. In numeracy, we believe that if we help our students develop critical thinking skills and problem-solving skills through engaging learning experiences, as well as being able to notice and name numeracy strategies, then our student achievement will improve. Again, strategic staffing and continuously analyzing our data has helped us achieve the results that we have. We based our work in the book, What to Look For, by Lawson, and we've been able to place all of our students on the continuum of numeracy development, and you can see that on your slide as well. Our teachers consistently model and notice and name math strategies with our students. Familiar strategies, resources, and technology are consistently used across grades 7, 8, and 9. We provide some authentic learning experiences, like our very successful Lego research project. And this year, we have 100% of our teachers highlighting numeracy across the curriculum. We really want our students to see that math is everywhere. So for example, we've got math talks in tech, T-charts in French, half and doubling of fractions in recipes and cooking classes, and You may not be aware of that, but mathematical patterning is used in Jackson Pollock art to determine if paintings are fakes or real, and our students studied that this year. Because of all this, I believe we've seen an 8% increase in our grade 9 applied students telling us not only do they like math, but they think they're good at math. For literacy, we believe that if we develop students' critical thinking skills toward all texts, then our achievement will improve. Again, like numeracy, staffing strategically and continuously analyzing student work and data has helped us be in a good position to support our students. We base our action on what we know. For example, last year our literacy test told us that our students really struggled with complex nonfiction texts that contain unfamiliar vocabulary. So in plain language, that's words that have prefixes and suffixes attached. We based our work in the book When Kids Can't Read. Through that work, we helped our students learn strategies such as word trees, logo graphics, sketchnoting to help visualize text, context clues, and how to highlight key information. We carried out this work in all of our English classes, and then we moved it into all of our curriculum areas. We introduced our students to technology such as vocab.com, Newsela, and Kahoot. So this year our data is telling us that our students struggle with making connections in what they read, especially if it has graphic text. The slide in front of you would be a good example of that. So we'll move that into our area of focus as well. For wellness, we believe that if we help our students in promoting positive mental health strategies with them as well as our students, our staff, and our families, then depression and anxiety, as self-identified by our students, will decrease and their sense of belonging will increase. We're aligning our work with the director's work plan goal of helping students deal with stress, leading mentally healthy schools by OPC and the Catholic Principals Council, as well as this board's mental health strategy to develop mental health literacy in students and staff. In particular, we're expanding the use of the Supporting Minds document in our daily practice. Our students tell us that the main stress at school is with workload, tests, and due dates. Anecdotally, they say they struggle with a work-life-school balance. So what are we doing to help them? We're making sure student voice is at the table and behind our work plan. We've included students from every grade on their Tell Them From Me team, and we've reached out to other student groups that we have in the building to help us plan action items to support students. We make sure that the student voice is heard. For example, we discovered last year that our dress code did not really have language that was inclusive and supportive and respectful of everybody. So we invited every student, every family member, every staff member to give us feedback. We heard lots. So we came up with a better, more improved dress code policy for our building that's very inclusive and respectful, but follows safe school policies. We're building on what we have in the building already. And what do we have? We have a very successful health and wellness SHISM. They've started a wellness team that runs Wellness Wednesdays for everyone in the building. Our student councils have helped us plan once-a-month school-wide wellness activities, and they really wanted easy spirit days that everybody could get involved with, including staff and students. We've opened up more areas of school during lunch and after school for clubs and drop-ins. And finally, we've developed a common staff calendar for major assignment due dates so that everybody can plan for the students and what's happening in our building. Finally, North Dundas is a community school. This aligns well with the director's work plan goal of connecting with the community. The photo on your right is a picture of our students working with the Township of North Dundas. So they've researched, designed, and manufactured light covers, garbage cans, bike racks, and right now they're working on accessible benches for public areas. The photo on your left is our transportation class. They partnered with the community to repair a car for a Syrian refugee family. And in this particular photo, not only did a local windshield installer provide the windshield for free, but he also came into the school and offered a workshop to students on how to install windshields. The photo in the middle, we partnered with a local farmer to become beekeepers through our agricultural schism program. We have Skyping around the world with authors and artists. Through an innovation and learning grant, we had science students work with community partners for learning about food banks, organic farming, worm composting, and growing towers. Our next step as a school, we need to continue to cultivate those community partnerships so that we can offer programming in our classrooms and co-curriculars for grades 7 to 12. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Once again, I'm going to turn this over to Trustee Armour.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this time, I'm going to talk a little bit about teamwork and the great job, Angela, that you do with your team. So my son goes to that school, and I get the privilege of going in and talking to your team quite a bit, because he's always late, like his dad. So I want to speak a little bit about the teamwork that I see there. And leadership is about keeping your team focused on a goal and motivated to do their very best to achieve it. And I see it every time I come in there, and I'm proud of that. So, and I also love the fact that you hit up all the parents that come in to participate and be involved with their kids' education. And that's so important, especially with a community school like ours. So, congratulations to you and your team. The results speak for themselves again. I'm proud to represent our area for another 3 days, I guess. So anyways, but great job to you and your team. It's always a privilege to come in. Everyone's always smiling, and it's such a welcoming attitude. You'd be very proud of yourself for what you've done there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments or questions? Trustee Bill McPherson?
Through the chair. I'm curious as to why you choose beekeeping as your agricultural schism. I realize that we're probably surrounded by a lot of cash crop and livestock farmers down there. So was there any particular reason you went with beekeeping, other than the fact that the animals are an awful lot smaller and easier to handle?
Through you, Chair, I have to say right off the top of my head, I don't. The agricultural schism is a large team of students and adults in our building, and they really come together and look at what would they like to do. So this is driven by the students, and one of the things they wanted to learn about was beekeeping. I think because we've heard a lot in the world about the bee population is declining and we need them to populate in order for our plants to thrive and for us to thrive. So they pick bees. We don't have them on our property right now. We have them at a neighboring farm, one because we're respectful of people at our building who might be allergic, but also we need to learn about them. So I don't have the exact reason why we picked them. I can certainly find that out for you, but they're well engaged and they have this vision. They told me when they asked me would I agree to this, that they would produce and sell their own honey in our school. I think there's a fundraiser in there somewhere.
Yeah, thank you. I'm from an agricultural background, so it's my dream that eventually all secondary schools will at least have an agricultural component. And I do want to share with you that no matter how fast you're going on a tractor, you cannot outrun a bee.
Can I quote you on that? Trustee Graham.
Thank you, Chair. The area you're in has several smaller communities, Winchester, Chesterville, Morwood. When your grade 6s come into your grade 7 program, what kind of activities do you do to meld those three communities together so that you have the community school that you're talking about?
Well, I think first of all, we have a student leadership program called the WEB program, so we host that. And when those students come in, we make sure that we mix up those teams, and we have students from the school who are in grade 7 and 8 be part of those, so they have some transition. We also spend a lot of time having our staff go to those schools and meet their staff and bring them back to our building, sometimes in small groups, sometimes in large groups, sometimes individually. This past year, we hosted a open house that we called Come Have Dinner with Our Family, and we had all of our families come and sort of did family-style dinner where they all get to come in and meet with each other and get to know each other. We also offer individual tours at our school and invite people in, and we try to team incoming students with students in grades 7 and 8 who are from that school. And I guess in reaching out to that, I call all the families personally to invite them to have them there, but then we look to other people, other adults at our school and parents to reach out to those new parents coming in.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Mr. Krigner.
This is short vision tonight, no. Thank you for your presentation, and through your chair, I'd like to get a comment from you about the common calendar that you have created. The feedback that you get from parents and students, have you had much from them?
We've just, through you, Chair, we've just started it this fall. I think we haven't surveyed anybody, so I don't have hard data here. I have anecdotal comments where people appreciate that we are paying attention to some of our students not having 3 tests or 3 major due dates on the same day, or if we know that there's a particular extracurricular activity happening, that we don't schedule a major assessment piece on that day or the day after, that we're working with our students to make sure that we spread that out.
I think that's a powerful, positive move on behalf of both students and parents. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Seeing there are none, if you recall about a year ago, the director and I do what all directors and chairs do. We go to a school where the principals got their first year. So we showed up the first day of school at year for the tradition that we started where we would greet the students. And something very special happened that day. The director and I got a chance to meet the custodian on your staff, Donnie. Donnie just retired, am I correct? After 47 years? 45. That means when I was 20 years old, he started working as a custodian. That's how I want to put that in context. When I was 20. Now think about that. To give 45 years, and the energy and the pride that he had in the work he was doing at that school just blew us away. And I'm sure he's missed, but talk about leaving a legacy. The man just had such pride. And when Trustee Armour was talking about team, I'm sure he was a very vital part of that team and part of that school for a long time. So I'm sure you missed him, but that was something that really caught our attention. Thank you very much for your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to the next item. This is the school-wide positive behavior support update to the board. I'm going to turn this over to Principal of Special Education and Student Success, Debbie Banks, and to the intensive support teacher, Catherine Princeton. And I'm going to have Superintendent Ferguson do the introductions here.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's my pleasure tonight to be here to introduce the folks. Last year, at the end of the year, I was presenting to board in my capacity as superintendent of school operations, and my presentation at that time was around safe schools. And part of my presentation, I talked about suspension and expulsion data. And the question was raised around this table about what else we do to ensure that students are well and safe and that behave in a way that lets them learn while at school. And I indicated at that time that, in fact, there was an abundance of things that we do in schools, and that in fact suspensions and expulsions were the last resort of our principals. And tonight during the school presentations, you heard a couple of those with Kelso's choices. You heard about zones of regulation, and you heard another principal talk about the supporting minds documents. And I'm happy to be able to share with you another positive behavior intervention, aptly named Positive Behavior Interventions, that we do in our schools. And I now welcome Debbie Banks, from Principal of Special Education, and Catherine Funston, who is a system teacher, to share with you about this new pilot and have you, so at the end you'll have a greater understanding of it and know about some of our successes so far.
Good evening. This pilot started, we selected a group of schools as a bit of a pilot and a random sample from across the board. And we were looking at specific ways that we could provide something for schools to support them in their school culture. And last year we had one intensive support teacher, Catherine Funston, and she was looking after the whole board. And as more schools came onto the pilot, we were able to add a second intensive support teacher with strictly the responsibilities for the eastern half of the board. So Catherine does the west half of the board, and Lisa Benoit does the eastern half of the board. So I'm going to turn it over to Catherine, who can give you some details about what school-wide positive behavior support is, and then we'll be able to answer some of your questions afterwards.
Thank you very much for having me here this evening to speak about something that I feel strongly about. School-wide positive behavior support is a framework, and the significance of that word framework is it is not a packaged program that we purchase. It is a structure that allows schools to use the things that are working well for them, whether it be Kelso's choices, various other strategies that they're using to strengthen behavioral skill sets of our students. In doing this, it allows us to build on the things that are working within our schools and to meet perhaps gaps where our students are struggling or our staff are uncertain how to best meet our student needs to ensure that they're experiencing success. We're working on teaching students skills that perhaps they're not coming into our buildings with, whether it might be in kindergarten or coming into our high schools. And because it's specific to schools, then it doesn't matter what grade level we're looking at. We're looking at where they're at that point in time and how we can best meet their needs. There is an emphasis on data, so we're not guessing at what's working for them. We're collecting the data and using it to guide our goals and to update our progress as we go along. It also provides us with an opportunity to use structures like universal design for learning to best meet our student needs and to also support our teachers when they're within their classrooms to meet the diverse needs of their students, whether it's a grade 9 academic course or it's a grade 2 classroom. We teach our behavioral skill sets or our pro-social skills the same way that we teach academics. It's based on a 3-tier approach with the baseline, the tier 1, this meeting about 85% of our student needs. That being said, that tier 1, those behavioral skill sets are taught to all students because we know that students who receive more intensive supports still learn a lot at those levels and can make a lot of gains by those sort of baseline skill sets being supported and emphasized and proactively supported within their time in school and extends outside of their classroom. So how we go about doing this within our schools, knowing that there are generally steps that we follow in every school, but we also adapt them according to our population. First, myself or Lisa meets with administrators to get an idea of their goals for their school and how we might best support that. We survey all staff, not just teaching staff, but we survey our custodians, our teachers, our office administrator, everyone who works within that building to get an idea of their things that they see that are working well within the school and things that they see as needing some change. We also survey all students. So the survey that we send out to a group, let's say our 7 to 12 schools, is different than what we use for our schools that are either 3 to 6 or 3 to 8, but we get their input as well, and that's very important because we want to know how they're feeling about school lines up with how the staff is feeling as well, because we want everyone to feel successful within the building. We go from there and we meet with a team. Our team is often formulated through our wellness SIPSA initiatives within our school, and we formed something called a school behavioral matrix. Now this is something that the staff looks at, the staff works on, and it reflects staff voice. However, we also provide leadership opportunities for our students within our schools, whether it be the grade 7-8 student council or our high school student council or our other leaders within our schools, sometimes within our leadership classes. And they provide input into this behavioral matrix as well, because it is important to get our student voice. We look at general goals, so our overalls, like our respect, kindness, our other qualifiers. And then we look at all areas of the school and how we expect our students to be able to behave within those areas. There's a lot of overlap from one area to the next. And we look at how can students function within those areas so they're successful. How do staff function within those areas so they support that success? And how can we be clear and consistent in every area of the school so everyone knows what to expect no matter where they are. And in that way, we provide a lot of support for our students who require support in the area of mental health, because they know what to expect no matter where they are in that school building. We also provide a lot of support for our staff, because they know that the things that they are enforcing, all other staff members are enforcing. We also provide, it provides a lot of team building within our staff, because it doesn't matter if you are the administrator within the building, you are the office administrator, the custodian, the teacher, you all have the same message, and you are all equally important in sharing that message. So it builds a lot of teamwork within your building, and the students are very much part of that teamwork. The other extension of that is your community is part of that teamwork as well. So we have schools where we have people coming in from the community, whether it be businesses or police forces or different people that are operating within that building that are also enforcing this behavioral matrix. So they have also received, whether it be sit down with the administrator to talk about the matrix and how that unfolds within the school, or all kinds of different opportunities so that we can extend that outside of our school building, knowing that our community is greater than what happens just within our school walls. When we develop the matrix, we use it to develop what's called cool tools, which are posters. So we communicate that through posters, and they are put up in all the different areas of the school that we've identified as a school group as needing this type of signage, so that students and all visitors to the school and staff know what's expected in that area and can follow through with that. And you can see that what's on the posters is less complex than what's in the matrix as an overall. Every step of that poster is accompanied with a visual, so that when you have follow adult directions, it doesn't matter if it's there on the hallway poster or it's a classroom or where it is, it has the same visual. And the idea behind that is we have to reach our non-readers as much as we're reaching our readers. So those posters are always, and they're taught, so that visual is theirs. And that's a very important piece. When we have follow adult directions, we don't expect that students know exactly what that means. We teach our students exactly what that means, so that when it's said in a classroom, it's said outside a classroom, every single student has that teaching piece that goes along with it. And every teacher and every staff member is sharing the same set of directions. We link it into our SIPSA goals. Now this was started, this particular, and I know it's a lot, up on the slide, we started last year in the school, where they started planning school wellness and focused on a certain set of directions with their students. And our focus is on the positive behavior. So what happens is we look at what we want students to be demonstrating within our school, and we reinforce that behavior with the understanding that the behavior we focus on the most is the behavior we see the most. That doesn't mean that there isn't a set of consequences for students that perhaps are not following that behavior. Consequence, by the way, is not used in terms of punishment. It means follow through. So we have follow through for students who are demonstrating the positive skill sets we want to see, and we have follow through for students who are not yet meeting those goals. So this is monitored through our SIPSA goals. We take that data and we track, for instance, a positive reinforcement program. So perhaps we're focusing on hallway behavior. And one of the common sort of first focuses is language use within our hallways. And we are reinforcing those kids who are interacting with each other in positive ways and are using positive language. And then we track whether it be through actual classrooms or we track students as individuals. We look at all kinds of different pieces of information to see, are we being effective in bringing about the behavior we want to see. So a lot of times we hear staff saying, I really want to pay attention to that student that's doing the right things, but I spend all my time paying attention to the student that is demonstrating that behavior I don't want to see, and I feel like I'm missing this. Well, a lot of staff enjoy the fact that they actually get to give that positive feedback. And when you focus on the positive, you feel positive. So it increases the staff feeling that they're actually making a difference in student behavior and student lives, which they are. And the students feel reinforced. And those students are providing a model as well for those other students that perhaps are struggling. I also find that staff are quick to jump in and reinforce those students that are struggling. As soon as they see those students making some gains, they are reinforcing all the time. And it's a much better feeling for our students than constantly hearing what's not going right. So now, this is the way we start with an intervention for students who are not yet meeting our behavioral goals. We look at, is it staff addressed behavior, or is it something that has to go to administration right away? And we follow our progressive discipline models in the code of conduct for our board. So we know that certain things have to go to the office right away. But it builds the staff confidence in what behaviors they can deal with and how they address them before that behavior goes to the office. And what it builds is a connection between parents and teaching staff and other staff members, because there's steps that are outlined when teachers and other staff contact parents directly. So it's rebuilding those connections that parents have with their child's teachers. It's empowering staff to be able to feel like they can address behaviors, and it's also freeing up administrators to do things like go around the building, go into classrooms, and creating positive connections, which is good for our entire community. We gather, just like we gather data on positive reinforcement, we also gather all kinds of data on our office discipline referrals and our classroom discipline data. I say classroom, but it's also the discipline data from our recess yards from all areas of our school, so we can track that, see where, what times in our school day we are seeing perhaps most demonstration of difficult behavior, what areas of the school that's happening in, how we've responded to it, what teaching strategies we've used, have they been effective, what things have had to go to administration overall, how has administration had to intervene, and what kind of parental or guardian involvement that we have in that, and how we can, and from there we look at how can we make that better. So this is a big thing, and so schools that implement positive behavior support, so school-wide positive behavior support, there are definite trends in the data, and there's a lot out there, but this is related to data from British Columbia that has been implementing this throughout their school districts since 1999. This is a multi-year study. Our first few slides deal with an elementary school that represents an average in their school board. And the first one looks at office discipline referrals. And the reason why this is important is because it's our office discipline referrals that often deal with our exclusionary practices. So they affect things like kids being just out of class, right, sent out of class, or situations where suspension is discussed or other measures, whether it be in school or out of school suspension. So it's significant that when we look at our majors, which are the things that go to our office immediately, and our minors, which are things that are dealt with by staff before going to the office, that there's a significant decrease in the school once positive behavior support is fully implemented. And what that means is kids are in class. And we know that if kids are in class, they receive more instructional time. And when teachers are addressing fewer behavioral concerns, there's more teaching that's going on. We also know that it builds a culture of clarity and consistency, which is good for all of our students, but it's especially good for our students that are being faced with things like anxiety or other things. The functional skills assessment is what British Columbia uses in their grade 4 and 7 years. It's like our EQAO. When positive behavior support is fully implemented, our reading comprehension scores go up significantly. In grade 7, we look at this in reading, writing, and math. And there is a dramatic difference between schools that are fully implementing our positive behavior support and schools that are not quite there yet. And that's our last slide. So.
Thank you very much. So I'm going to open it up, the floor to comments or questions. A lot of information there for us to be thinking about right now. So give the trustees a second. Are there any comments? Questions? Trustee McDonald?
Thank you. A lot of information, absolutely, and you talk about the data, but I don't see any data here. So why haven't we included the data in this?
Through you, Chair, I'm not quite sure. Can you ask me that again, just so I understand exactly?
So you're saying how it's effective on certain levels. Mm-hmm. Where do you show that here? Can you show me how each school is?
Yes.
Okay.
So we have a number of schools that are involved with this right now. So if we look at this slide in particular. Each bar represents a different date, and each date represents a different behavioral outcome that we're hoping to address. So what this is tracking is the positive reinforcement system that they're using and the number of students in each room that receive that positive reinforcement for demonstrating the behavioral outcome that that staff is focusing on. And we can see over time that that's increasing. So through looking at that, we know when to move to the next thing and how to update our goals. The other thing that's more anecdotal is that I receive a lot of feedback from staff saying, you know, in this particular classroom, I often had kids who were swearing throughout the class, or I had a lot of difficulty with, and suddenly they're turning around to redirect other kids when they're demonstrating behavior that we don't want to see within the classroom.
I guess what I'm looking for is you talk about the effectiveness of it, but I don't see the data to show me that there's been a level at whatever point, and now we're here because of the use of this framework. And you use some examples of a case study, but I don't see any Upper Canada data to show the effectiveness of the framework that we've implemented.
Through you, Chair, we have a number of schools that we're just working at, and they're all at different stages. And so this particular one is from one of our schools, but yes, when we, should we be asked to return, we would bring data that would indicate where the different schools are. But right now, some of them are at just the very beginning stages, so they're just developing what those expectations are based on the survey data, whereas others, such as this one, have some actual data that they have collected based on the responsive reinforcements.
As a final question, I guess, then, we have heard lots of information about our tiered intervention approach, and we're talking about more along the lines of Tier 1 and potentially into Tier 2. What's the progress? How does this framework fit for those kids that are Tier 2, Tier 3?
So positive behavior intervention strategy came in conjunction in working with our student support partners, our psychologists, Dr. Allison English and Dr. David Armstrong, and looking at the school mental health document as well. So in looking at, as Catherine describes, those 85%, that if we can work with those, and we do have structures within the board that would work with our Tier 3 students. So for instance, our itinerant student support workers or our autism therapists that would work with those students that would have specific needs, as well as when our SSPs and our SSCs, our student support partners and special services counselors, are doing those interventions for those particular Tier 3 students.
Thank you. Trustee McAllister.
Thank you. I'm having some difficulty understanding. Maybe you can help me out. For example, I don't understand the difference between the survey on slide 3 and the Tell Them For Me survey that we use all the time. I don't understand the difference between the framework and a code of conduct and the wellness portion of our school improvement plans. And I honestly don't know how do you operationalize such a framework in a given school?
Okay, so through you, Chair, the framework, how it works is that it's very much based on building pro-social skill sets in order to support academic skill sets. So we need kids at a point where they're ready to learn so they're able to learn. So that's the basis of the program. But we also need to use the things that are working well within our schools so we can continue that, but continue it in a way that provides PD for our staff that is effective, looks at our student population, looks at the school itself, because we know how things unfold within a high school is very different from the way it unfolds in an elementary school. So instead of buying a prepackaged program, the framework allows for support of those things that are working within the school, but also fills in those gaps for things that perhaps either staff are having difficulty with, right? And they feel like they're not quite meeting student needs. So that's the difference in terms of referring to it as a framework versus a program.
So I think there was 3 questions there, so I'll jump in and maybe answer your first question. That was around the survey data, through you, Chair. So you referenced the Tell Them For Me survey that we use. Right now, that's currently used with our 7 to 12 schools, and some of the schools that are part of this are elementary schools. And also, when you review the data that's in Tell Them For Me, it is a very comprehensive survey and asks quite a few questions, but it certainly doesn't go to the detail around specific schools and what's happening and what people feel is taking place in the school. So this survey provides that drilling down another level, and it's specific to the school and focuses on behavior and what's happening with wellness in the school, whereas the Tell Them For Me survey is much broader and touches on all sorts of aspects, and it would be more of a helicopter view, and this is more of on-the-ground kind of view survey. And again, one of the advantages to doing this when you go into a school, it's current as well. Tell Them For Me has some great information for us. It's done once a year. When their team goes in to do this at the school, it's actually what's happening, that week at the school, as opposed to maybe what students were feeling, 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 months before. So it has that advantage of being current. Also, it helps because some of our schools are elementary in this, and then the final one is it really does drill down at another level. So I think that's the answer to your first question. Catherine, I believe I answered your last. And what was can you repeat the other question you had?
What's the difference between this framework and a code of conduct and the wellness portion of a school improvement plan?
Well, I wouldn't say that it's a different. I think that these all work together. At the start, what Catherine mentioned is that this doesn't replace some of the great things that are happening. You heard some of the schools earlier present on that they're using Kelso's choices and zones of regulation. This doesn't come in and say, forget that, here's a brand new thing. This is a framework that kind of overlays that and gets some more data and helps use the things that are working well and find other areas that might need a little more work, and has a consistent framework for the whole school. So I wouldn't say it's separate from, but more in conjunction with.
Thank you. Trustee Armour.
Rob, maybe you can stop there through you, Mr. Chair. So when I look at slide number 3, is this just a random sample, or is this an actual school that you met with the administrators, surveys, and staff and the students, and these are the results? Is that right? Or is this just one school?
That's just one school.
Okay.
Yeah, through you, Chair, that is just one school.
And then a follow-up, Mr. Chair?
Certainly.
So this is a pilot. When do you expect to be finished?
It's hard. It's not a start and end sort of thing. It's building into a school culture to create a positive climate within that school that is long-lasting. So when do we know if it's working? Well, I know within the schools I've been working with since last year that it is working. I get so much positive feedback from staff about feeling like they have more ownership within the class or within the school, feeling like their voice is being heard. I hear that from administrators as well, and I hear it from students. It is a slow process. It's not a quick program. And it's not quick because we're trying to establish something long-lasting. So it's not like we have a book that we can open up and apply the same way in every school, but based on the feedback, based on the data that we are collecting, it's having a significant impact on particularly students within the school, which, is it's good. It's good to walk into a building and hear the whole sound of the building is different than it was previous to. It's good to walk into a building and see staff being very positive about hearing their voice or feeling like their voice is being heard in what's happening within that school.
Okay, I'm going to have just one more question. I think McPherson, Trustee McPherson, and I think we'll. Okay.
No, I'll succeed to David.
That's okay.
All right.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so I want to thank you very much for the presentation. Appreciate it, and thank you.
Christopher may have something to say.
Okay, at this point, we're going to get a motion that the Upper Canada District School Board move into Committee of the Whole, November 28th at 7:50. Moved by Trustee Swan and seconded by Trustee McAllister. Just a show of hands, please. Thank you very much. And now I need a motion that the Committee of the Whole move into private session, November 28th, 2018. Moved by Trustee Richards, seconded by Trustee Armour. And show of hands. Thank you very much. We shouldn't be long, but I've said that before.
I just did.
that, the Upper Canada District School Board moved back into regular board meeting November 28th, 2018 at 8 o'clock. Moved by Trustee Carpenter, seconded by Trustee Bill McPherson. Just a show of hands, please. Excellent. We're back in. Okay, this brings us to our student trustee, Bushra Kadra, who's going to give a report to of the student trustee. So, turning it over to you. Pardon me?
Is it okay if I sit here?
You certainly.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
You have to jump in the middle.
So this is the report to the board about the Student Senate meeting that occurred on October 19th. Student Senate is comprised of 2 senators from each high school in the Upper Canada District School Board. There are 2 different types of senators: delegates who are non-voting members of the Senate, and voting members who are senators that are leaders or leading members of their school student council. So UCDSB Student Senate meets 4 times a year. We recently just met October 19th at the North Grenville Municipal Centre in Kemptville, and our next meeting is at the Roebuck Community Centre in Spencerville on December 7th. At the October 19th meeting, some topics of discussions were the student trustee role and student senate summary, student senate goals and initiatives for 2018 and 2019, OSED and cannabis discussion by Mr. Don Lewis, and what works in your school and what are the areas for improvement, and the director's work plan. Our first topic is student wellness, as there are concerns about rise in mental illness among students. Some initiatives that work well in schools are the Learning Commons being open all day and after school, stress management resources, MSIP work periods and rooms where students can exclusively work on e-learning courses, schools connecting youth with safe places within the school and community, specialist high skills major programs and the International Baccalaureate program, the breakfast program, mental illness discussions in classrooms, and the Indigenous English course for grade 11 students. Initiatives that need to be further refined are unbalanced timetables, access to wellness counseling within the school and appointment wait times, drug and alcohol support, additional support for post-secondary education, the cost of the food in the cafeteria, space in school exclusively for students to de-stress and unplug, and a switch from a day-to-day rotation to a weekly rotation. They also mentioned further support for time management skills and a need to update some dress codes. The next topic of discussion was student culture, as there are apprehensions about students not participating in school activities and lacking school pride. Some initiatives that work well in schools are Link Crew, Student Council, the International Education Program and Diversity in Schools, and the acknowledgement of traditional territory during announcements. Some initiatives that need to be refined are student participation, more consequences for bullying and discrimination, UCDSB and school-to-student communication via social media, and the need to foster positive classroom and school environments. And that is all. I'll take any questions.
It was a good meeting.
Yeah.
No, it went a lot longer. It was good. I'm going to open it up to comments or questions. Trustee McAllister.
No, it's not up.
It's like being at an auction. You blinked and you got it. I'm teasing. Are there any other comments or questions?
Just have no questions.
It was is there anyone? It was a great meeting, and the discussion was really. It's always fun and always enriching to be able to get in the room with students and have them share and I'm going to miss that. There's no question about it. So I'm looking forward, or I'm not looking forward myself personally, but I know the board and the next board will be looking forward to see what's coming out of Student Senate and some of the advice that they're going to offer in terms of what we may want to consider. So thank you very much for that.
And thank you to anyone around the board table or who is not here who helped me get the first meeting going.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, it was great. Do you have a question, Trustee?
Yes, I do. On some of these topics that you have suggested are ones that they want to discuss, have you got work groups working on any of these, or are you doing it at the meetings themselves?
So we have not had work groups started yet. That is something that we were hoping to get started at the second meeting. At the first meeting, it was just an initial day to discuss issues that need to be refined and initiatives that worked well in schools.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, thank you very much for that report. Okay, moving on to the next. This is a policy revision to reflect cannabis legislation. Part 3, the community use of school ground facilities, alcohol and substance use. And I'm going to turn this over to Superintendent of Safe Schools, Deanna. Right. So before I do that, I want to put a motion on the floor. And this is the motion that the Upper Canada District School Board approve the revisions of Policy 435, community use of school grounds and facilities effective November 28, 2018. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Trustee Cartner and Trustee McDonald, and I'll turn this over to Superintendent Perry.
Through you, Chair, I'm bringing forward policy revision to Policy 435, and it's in relation to the legalization of cannabis. As you all know, on October 17th, we had the Cannabis Act go into effect, and that caused some revisions to the Education Act, and then it had subsequent changes to policy and to our procedures that go with that. So over the past few board meetings, we have had the Code of Conduct, the UCDSB Code of Conduct, the Student Discipline Policy, Smoke-Free Environment Policy, and this evening, community use of schools come forward, as well as the alcohol and substance use policy. So currently in the policy, the following statements are what needs to be revised to reflect cannabis legislation. There is a clause in the policy that states all rental agreements must abide by the Tobacco Control Act and the Liquor Control Board Act of Ontario and regulations. And we're suggesting all rental agreements must abide by the Liquor License Act and Cannabis Act, Smoke-Free Ontario Act, and regulations that get amended from time to time. And also suggesting, in addition to the policy, that all users of the board's facilities abide by the board code of conduct. And we also have a current clause that the policy is subject to annual review, and suggesting a revision that it is subject to periodic review by the board to meet emerging situations relative to school usage. And that is the revisions that are being brought forward.
Thank you very much. I'm going to open it up to comments or questions concerning this. Trustee Cram.
Thank you, Chair. Just by changing the word annual to periodic, does that also entail that it may not be annual, it may be every 5 years, every 6 years, depending what the period you want it to be?
Through you, Chair, with the advent of legalization of cannabis, there's still quite a lot of unknowns, and I would imagine that as situations do present themselves, it could be annually, it could be biannually. It depends on the situations that present themselves as we become more familiar with the legalization impact.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Seeing there are none, there's a motion on the floor moved by, do I have the movers?
Yes.
Okay, this is moved by Trustee Cartner, seconded by Trustee McDonald, that the Upper Canada District School Board approves the revision to Policy 435, community use of school grounds and facilities effective November 28th, 2018. Can I get you to cast your vote for me, please? And Trustee Armour? Okay, that carries. Thank you very much. Thanks for that report. Okay, moving on to report of the Special Education Advisory Committee, and turn this over to the SEAC Chair, Bill McPherson.
Thank you. Our SEAC held their last meeting of this term on November the 6th, 2018. It was a night of celebration and a night of farewells. We actually set a record that evening. We had 3 superintendents in attendance, either in spirit or physically. And our first presentation came from Tanya Mason for the assistive technology. And I have to admit, That was quite a sleigh ride. It was amazing what she could get out of a tablet. You could speak into it and it would write for you. If you typed into it, it would read it back to you. And I realized that I'm just scratching the surface on the technology that I have at home. You could even take a picture and it would describe to you what it thought it saw in the picture. And committees are supposed to be boring. We're not supposed to have this much fun, but we did. And we had to say goodbye and move on to the more mundane stuff as we went ahead. We talked about the school calendar. We also had Deanna Perry, superintendent, talking to us about the code of conduct. And again, it was more of the same old stuff of accommodating the cannabis legislation. Superintendent Ron Ferguson connected by phone, and he gave us the superintendent's report. And Deb Wood shared a program that the Shriners are running called Cut the Bull, which is out of Montreal, and it's an ambassador program talking about anti-bullying. And to keep us all in order at night, David Coombs was in attendance to make sure that we got through our meeting. We ended up with presentations to our members for their 4 years of service, and sadly said goodbye to some very key members. A new board will form again in January after the board here goes through its elections. Any questions? Ask the guy at the bottom, Ron Ferguson, Superintendent of Schools.
Thank you for that report. Do we have any questions or comments at this time? Seeing there are none, I thank you very much for that. Okay, at this point, we are looking at a report to the board from private session, and in private session, there's a motion that's coming forward. I'd like to get a mover and seconder. I need a mover and seconder that the Upper Canada District School Board approve resolution number PS 2018 November 28-002 carried in the Committee of the Whole private session under agenda item D1 November 28th, 2018. A mover and a seconder for that. Trustee Bill McPherson and Trustee Karkner. Thank you. We're going to take the vote? Yeah. I'm just looking around. All right, cast your vote, please. And that carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to the next section. This is a tough one. This is the farewell and recognition to the 2014-2018 Board of Trustees. I'm going to turn this over to Director Sleager.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If you'd forgive me just for a moment, I'm going to go over to the podium and take this opportunity to properly recognize and acknowledge some members of the board and the board in whole. So just a moment, please.
Starts. I've never seen a two-page slide deck, never.
So, Mr. Chair, through you, as members of the board know, we have a number of trustees that are wrapping up their service to the community and to the board this evening. It's my pleasure to take a few minutes to recognize them for their service and for their devotion to our schools and to our students. So I want to begin by acknowledging Trustee Susan Richards. Trustee Richards, I want to thank you for considering the dreams of others as a long-serving trustee for Ward 3. You've been a strong voice for programs and opportunities for your schools. You were especially proud of the high schools in your ward and how they sought to reach out to the learners that
were sometimes very complicated or complex, and yet they were being served with great care and dignity. I can't think of a greater supporter of the Red Hawk Cafe than Trustee Richards, where I would get periodic emails about, what they're serving for lunch, knowing that I have a penchant for Italian food. We didn't ever quite make those luncheons, but, the Red Hawk Cafe is doing not just great meals, they're doing some great things for students who happen to be producing meals. Your distinguished service as a member of the board's SEAC committee is noteworthy and deserves to be honored this evening. In those committee meetings, we know that you've always shared two stories. One was about what it meant to be a parent with a child that has a disability, and secondly, what we need to do to serve these families and their children in the best way possible with all the resources that we have. We want to thank you for making a difference, and we want to take a moment to honor you, so I hope you'll come forward so we could express our appreciation to you as a board and as a staff. And thank you, Trustee Richards. Next, I'd like to recognize Trustee Jeremy Armour, our trustee for Ward 7. Thank you for taking the time, Mr. Armour, for serving the people and schools in Ward 7. On a personal note, I want to express to you my appreciation for your advice and guidance, using your years of business background to help me grow in my work and to help to grow our organization. It's really important that our Board of Trustees is made up of diverse people and diverse backgrounds in order that we can do the business of serving children in schools. I know that you've been a tireless advocate of your ward, and your comments this evening with regards to two schools is certainly evidence of that. Please know that as a staff, and on behalf of the staff and on behalf of the board, we wish you well in your next stage of your work. We know that you're extremely busy in your business pursuits, and that is great news for you and great news for your family. We wish you continued success in your business and the best of health to you and your family. Would you please come forward so we can recognize you? Oh my goodness. How did you know that's my thing? Oh, that's great. Thanks. Thanks. Next, I'd like to take a few minutes to acknowledge and recognize our first Vice Chair, Trustee Carol Karkner. The board in our school district, Carol, has benefited from your extensive experience as a long-serving educator and a person who's deeply invested in the life and community of the Prescott-Russell area. Your zone meetings and gatherings of this nature, where you bring together the willing and people who are very interested in our schools and what we can do to work together in order to make schools a better place for kids, is distinguished and welcomed. I want to thank you for making sure that you always invited myself and the senior staff to be part of those meetings, and your principals as well. We all benefited from the informal environment that you created there, where we could talk about if there's something else that we can do to serve students, make schools better, work together, draw community resources in, and make sure that we're all keeping our focus on students. Thank you for making time as well as the board's representative on our charitable foundation, Champion for Kids. Trustee Karkner speaks from the heart and is a strong voice for the Board of Trustees about how that foundation can also do things that might go outside of what is the mandate of the board, but certainly well within the mandate of a charitable foundation. We will miss you, but we hope that you continue to do your good works on behalf of the young people out in Prescott-Russell, and we hope that you'll keep in touch. Could you come forward, please, so we can recognize you, and thank you. ladies and gentlemen, as you know, this evening, Trustee Wendy McPherson wasn't able to join us in person, but we know that she's on the line, I believe. And at a later time, in the not-too-distant future, we hope that we can meet up with Trustee McPherson in her home community of Alexandria and make the presentation that way. Trustee McPherson will be happy to know it's not going to be a free-for-all now that she's not here and doesn't get the gift, so we can reassure her that that'll be coming her way. Trustee McPherson embodies for us as an organization what community leadership is all about. She's been a very strong advocate of her ward. She's ensured that the voice of students and their families and local community, local businesses have been heard throughout her time with the board. We understand that she always is a straight shooter and that you can't ever underestimate the value of that. One always knows where you stand with Wendy because she's always so strong and clear about what she's thinking and how she's feeling. And because of that, we also admire the integrity and the honesty in which she does her work. We want to thank Trustee McPherson this evening in absentia, and we do look forward, Wendy, to catching up with you in the next few days so we can make that presentation with your community being witness. So congratulations and thank you on behalf of all of us.
Thank you.
So next I'll call upon our chair, Trustee Jeff McMillan. If he could come forward. There's a number of people who want to honor you and to recognize you for the moment and in the moment. The first is Trustee Lisa Swan, who has a presentation to offer the chair on behalf of herself and members of the board.
Congratulations. We'll miss you. I guess we've been trustees for 8 years now. I don't have a pineapple. I think that was an old tradition. But I just want you to be able to say that you've been here, done it, and now you have a T-shirt.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much.
More.
So, Chair McMillan, our second vice chair, Trustee David McDonald, would like to make a presentation that is part of a legacy or a historic legacy that the board has. Straight from Maui is this gift, and I'll ask if Mr. McDonald could come forward, please.
Thank you.
So this is a contribution from a former chair, and there's a story behind the pineapple, and some of you may know it, some of you may not know. But a message from Greg and shared with me today and sharing with you right now is that some time ago we had a journey. There was myself, Jeff, and Greg Petersma, and Art Buckland. We were traveling on an educational journey through the Deep South, and we were in Louisiana, and we happened to go to a plantation museum. On the tour, we actually were led through the chambers, and the guide talked to us about how they greeted people that would come to the plantation and how they made sure that they allowed people to move on from the plantation when their visit was over. So the secret of the pineapple is that upon welcoming the guest, there was a pineapple in the room, and if the guests have overstayed their welcome, there was another pineapple put in the room to suggest that it's time to move on. Jeff, you've chosen this time to move on, and you've made an incredible contribution to the students of Upper Canada in the classroom, the board table, through your books, and as a mentor to the next generation of teachers and to our leaders. You've made an indelible impact upon those individuals. I'm proud to have worked with you, and all the best to you from Greg, myself, and Art.
This is it.
So, ladies and gentlemen, it's customary when there is a chair that's retiring to present a gift on behalf of the organization. So all of our students and all of our schools, the people who are assembled here this evening, the senior staff that have worked so closely with the chair, and of course on behalf of the community. Leaders are seldom perfect, but they must be whole. And what makes people whole as leaders is their integrity. Integrity is necessary to serve as a guide to move others to better places. Thank you, Jeff, for walking a straight path, taking our school district to a better place, and for all your efforts to unite and direct us on this journey. It has been a very challenging time for the board in the last 4 years, and it has been a most rewarding time for the board over the last 4 years. And we credit that to the board, all the people who are assembled here this evening, and you have our sincere thanks and gratitude on behalf of all the staff. We especially thank the chair, who helped to keep that path straight and well navigable, and to ensure that we always understood what was our basic driver for doing whatever we were doing. It was always about the students and the privilege of serving them well and making sure that they were, in fact, being prepared for a successful life. So we want to thank our chair, and we have a special gift in honor of the chair, and to thank you for your service to not only to Brockville, but to the Upper Canada District School Board.
So your entourage has to hold on to everything else.
Yes, please.
Before I say anything, Wendy, are you on the phone line? Wendy.
Yes. Yeah, I'm here.
I want you to know, Wendy, we miss you deeply. Wendy has taught all of us what it means to be courageous and strong during tough times.
Thank you.
Please know that you'll always be in our hearts. We're thinking of you, and we wish you the very best. Okay?
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
It's never easy to make a final speech, and I've thought about it many, many times. What I would say tonight, I don't write things down very much anymore because I don't keep lists. But what I did today is I decided I would go back on my journey in education. It was 61 years ago that my parents moved to Brockville at this time of the year. And I was only 4 years old, but on my birthday's in December, late December, so I turned 5. And it was a snowy day in the beginning of January when I started my first day at Westminster School. And it's funny, I was over there today and I walked around the school and I looked out on the school ground. And it was almost like yesterday that I got lost at lunch walking home. Instead of following the streets, I went down by the creek, ended up in people's backyards, and went back to the school crying because I was afraid. And that's how I started my journey in education in Brockville. And for a long time, I was a frightened little boy. And no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't get the marks that my parents wanted me to get. And I listened to the presentations that we hear at this board from the different schools coming, and I see the efforts that we're making to have every one of our children in our system do the best they can because we try to reach them in a way that they learn best. When I see those presentations, I wish that it happened back when I was young. Because when you struggle in school, you start to internalize that. And our young people today feel the same way. They internalize that they can't do it. And every year you promise yourself and you promise your parents you're going to do great. And the report card is the same. And then you roll into high school when I went to Thousand Island Secondary School. And I promised myself and my parents that that was going to be a new Jeff. And I failed grade 9 that year. And as I walked through the halls of Thousand Islands, I'm reminded of that. I also, during my career, had some teachers that helped me overcome my feelings that I couldn't achieve. And I did. And ultimately, went off to university and started to believe in myself and became a teacher. But I didn't come into teaching through the front door, I come in through the back door. Because nobody would ever expect someone who did not do well in school to be a teacher. I spent a lot of time down at the office in high school. But I'm leaving tonight, going out the front door. And I tell you all this story about the journey because I'm not alone. There's so many of us that have gone through that journey. And it also, I hopefully will tell you that, I tell you the story because it should remind you why I'm so proud to be where I am today, to represent the Upper Canada District School Board. I grew up with the Leeds and Grenville, and now I represent this board. I'm extremely proud of Upper Canada. I've been proud of Upper Canada as a teacher and now as a trustee for 40 years. I've given 40 years of my life, and they're the best 40 years I've ever given, because it is such a privilege for every one of us in this room to be able to work with young people, because we're working with the future. When I first became a teacher, I asked myself to do one thing. If I could make an impact in one child's life during my whole career, I would see myself as a success. I hope I have done that. And I hope over the last 4 years that I have represented this board with dignity and integrity. I know there have been times I've had to push a little bit to make sure the trustees stayed where the role defines. That's not always received well. But at the very end of the day, we are a team. The senior team, we work together with all of you. You do amazing work every single day. On behalf of the board, always stood proud. So tonight, I walk out of here with my head high out the front door. I thank you very much for allowing me to be a part of this.
I'm just wondering if we could ask Vice Chair Kartner and Trustee Richards and Trustee Armour if they just come forward just for a group photo here on behalf of our media team. Maybe swap their gifts. Swap their gifts.
Who'd be the bookends?
Thank you and congratulations.
There were times I thought maybe that pineapple was going to come a couple of years ago. Glad I got it when I did. Director, I'm going to ask you for some closing remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just the opportunity to reiterate on behalf of our senior team and of all of our staff, all 4,200 of our staff, to thank this board for their leadership and care and devotion over this past term. We really are doing many, many things that you hear about every other week that are making a difference for young people, and tonight's presentations by those two schools really, I hope, hit home what it looks like at the grassroots level. What really warms my heart and makes me feel so proud is how that many people around the table were already familiar with what was being presented tonight. And that says a lot about people making time, about being present at the schools and being curious about what we're doing and caring about how we're engineering this so that we can reach all kinds of kids and hopefully enable their dreams. So I want to thank the board again for that and to wish all of you a good wrap-up to this board and for the trustees who are returning. We're looking very forward to next week, Mr. Chair. We begin our next 4-year term on the December 5th, and we're looking forward to continuing our work with you on behalf of our students.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to share my closing remarks with the trustees that are leaving. And if any trustee that's leaving would like to make comments now, I'd love to share my time with you. So, Carol, Susan, I'm going to turn it to you, give you the opportunity if you want. If you don't, that's fine too. But Carol?
Sure. First of all, to the senior team and the staff that's in the room tonight and who might be listening. My sincere appreciation for all that you've done in the years that I've been a trustee. I know that sometimes I've been told I couldn't go to you directly, but you ask forgiveness after doing whatever you do, and you've been most welcome to let me into your offices and speak to you about a certain issue that might be of concern to me or to the people in my communities. A greater group of people over the years, some of the best that I've ever worked with. So thank you very much for all of your efforts. Staff that's been here for a while and those that have just joined us. And I'll move on to the trustees. Trustees, it's been a great 8 years. For most of us, we've had lots of fun, lots of laughter, but we've worked hard, and there's even been some tears shed at times. I wish the ones that are retiring all the best in the years to come. There's new adventures out there, and I'm sure each and every one of us will be trying to take advantage of those adventures. To the trustees returning, I wish you well. You've got some challenges coming forward, and I'm sure with the trustees that are going to be joining you, that those challenges will be met. Perhaps not to everyone's agreement, but do remember as a board that once a decision has been made, you stand behind it. So congratulations to each and every one of you, and for your wisdom that you shared with me over the years. And I threw out a little bit of my own now and again, but if you're fluffed it off, that's just fine too. So thank you everyone, and to our director, thank you. You've proved me right over the years that you've been with us, the years that you've been with Upper Canada, and I see great things happening for this board with the help of your senior team. And last but not least is Lisa. Lisa, you've been a great person to have in my life and to the life of the trustees. And she keeps us in line, and, but does it in a kind and gentle way. So thank you, Lisa, for everything you've done.
Thank you, Carol.
Thank you, Jeff, for the opportunity of being your first vice. And David, I'm really bookend here. Thank you.
Thank you. Susan.
We'll see if I can make it through it. If not, John will have to read it. I'm a big old crybaby. I cry at movies and the Waltons reruns. So, even though I've seen them like 100 times each. It's been a privilege to be around this table for the last 15 years, representing Ward 3. I'm honored to have been part of the team of trustees and the senior staff, both past and present, who have worked hard to make up. You're going to have to do it. Sorry.
Okay. The past 15 years have been both challenging and rewarding.
I am proud of all the accomplishments we have made over the years. I will fondly look back on the past and remember all the good that we have done for the benefits of students here in Upper Canada. I will also cherish the many friendships I have made here. I will miss you all and wish you all the very best in the future.
Thank you.
Trustee Armour.
Well, what can I say? I think what I'll say is thank you to everyone around the table. It's been a great 4 years. I think what I've learned is how important it is that despite our policies and the things that we do around this table, that we always make it about the kids, because that's what we're here to serve. And I got that advice when I was the chair of my daughter's school when she was 4 years old, and that stuck with me from a principal. So you know what? When we make it about the kids, and we make it our passion, boy, the things we can do is pretty amazing. And lastly, I gotta say thank you to our fearless leader, our representative. I've challenged you in a lot of things, in and out of meetings, and you know, Jeff, you put me in line a couple times, and I challenged you, and I appreciate that. So I'll only say thank you to you, and thank you to everybody else too as well. But anyways, thank you.
Thank you very much. Wendy, do you want to say something?
Yes, please. I guess firstly to say I consider everyone at that table a friend, and I so appreciate all your help and everything to get me through these 4 years. And I definitely want to thank Jeff for all his guidance and his patience and tolerance with me. I know it hasn't been easy. Also, Carol, for all the support and help that you've done for myself, and David for all the mentoring and guidance that you've done for me too. And Ryan, I don't know, are you there?
Yes.
Ryan, I wanted to say thank you so much for being part of our committee, our board, and doing a great job for bringing me closer to the Indigenous people. Also, I wanted to thank Bob Brusha for doing such a super job with the Senate. I think your report was awesome, and I look forward to watching you in the future. I think you're going to go places, kiddo. And John, I wanted to say thanks for everything that you're doing too, and I sincerely think you're doing an awesome job as a trustee, and your reports are awesome, and they always kept me updated. Thank you. And Jeremy, I just think you're the best, buddy. I'm gonna miss you the most. And so I know, and Richard's Susan, I wanted to say I feel for you, girl, and you're strong, and you're going to do so wonderful in your future. So way to go. And Lisa, I wanted to say thanks for everything, and all your help and guidance and patience. And now my trustee with the same initials and name, I want to say, way to go, guy. Thanks for being there, and don't forget about your fellow farmers when you're thinking about policies. I know you well, and I've always enjoyed your stories. And Mr. Director, I wanted to say thank you also for everything that you taught me, and I hope you do well in the future with everything with what you're taking on. And I didn't miss anybody, did I? Oh, Donald Cram! Oh my God! I want to do thanks for everything. You've always been such a good time, and I really think it's wonderful that you're there again, and that you're with policies through everything. So thanks everybody, and superintendents. I'll reach out to you guys, get touch base, and thanks again for letting me say that. Bye.
Thank you, Wendy. Don, who? You know, I'm not going to go out. I'll probably say more over in the other room, but first and foremost, Lisa, I know you say it all the time, I'm just doing my job. But anyone that's ever sat in this chair knows that it's not easy to do your job unless you've got someone that keeps you on the straight and narrow. And I have so much respect for you, so thank you. It's a lot of work to keep guys like us in line, but you do it, and I thank you for that. Stephen, thank you. for your leadership. The many conversations we've had. You've always had that calm when I haven't, and I've needed it, and it's important. I could go around the table and say to each one of you what you mean to me. I think you all know that every one of you brings something very special to the table. If we all agreed on everything, we would only need one trustee, we wouldn't need 11. And it's so important to have all the different voices at the table. And as I mentioned a couple of times, we don't always agree, and we don't always leave the table happy with each other. But at the end, we're part of the board that puts kids first, and that's how it has to be. So the advice that I do want to give right now are to any of the new board members that are coming in. And I say this as someone who was, like all of us, we were brand new. And I came in with a group of 5 of us 8 years ago. We came off the campaign trail, filled with the campaign rhetoric, how we're going to do this and we're going to do that and we're going to make sure the board's transparent, we don't like this. All of the things that has been said in every campaign since. Everybody says the same thing, and yes, you new trustees have said the same thing. What you will find out very, very quickly is this is an honest board with complete integrity and incredibly transparent. It won't take you long to figure that out. So all of the campaign rhetoric you're going to have to put aside because you've got some serious work to do. And you will not and cannot do that work if you have 11 individuals sitting around this table. Because you are only one vote, as I am only one vote. So unless you can come in and work as a team, it's going to be a challenge. But I know you can because the 5 of us, and I look around, there's 3 of us that are left in the original? 4? 4 of the 5 are still sitting here right now. We learned very quickly what it meant to be a team. And so the new trustees, I understand the campaign rhetoric, I know how that works. Now you've got to come in here, roll up your sleeves, and do the best work you can because our young people depend on that. They depend on you as they depend on everyone else sitting at this table. So I'm counting on you to do that. Okay, enough of that foolishness. This is my pleasure to have a motion first moved by Trustee Wendy McPherson, seconded by Trustee Bill McPherson at the regular meeting in the public session of the Upper Canada District School Board, November 28, 2018, be adjourned at 8:47. The inaugural meeting is scheduled for December the 5th, 2018. A show of hands. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.